Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kristen Sharp, and I'm the President and CEO of the Oro Valley Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of our board, I heard a couple out there, thanks. On behalf of our board, our staff, and our members, welcome to the 2023 Oro Valley Economic Outlook Luncheon and Spring Wellness and Business Expo. Here with us today is a very special guest who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance before we eat. Or, you're eating your salads already, that's okay. I'd like to ask Bo Chop to please join me on stage. Bo is the 8-year-old son of chamber members Debbie and Chad Chop of Cross Country Mortgage. He's very interested in subjects beyond his age, so we're very glad that he could join us today.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Bo. Now for the best part of our program, the food. Please enjoy your delicious filet of beef prepared by the wonderful chef and staff here at El Conquistador Tucson. If you haven't already eaten your dessert, please notice how our luncheon sponsor, Spawell, has been beautifully showcased. Let's give them a round of applause to everyone here at El Conquistador Tucson for this beautiful meal. The recent fire at our office, fueled by copious amounts of brochures and magazines and extra event programs, has made us reevaluate the amount of paper that we actually need in our lives. So if you'll notice, there are only enough printed programs on the tables for about half of you, but in the stanchion there's a QR code that links directly to our digital program and includes links back to everyone's websites. And let's be honest, most of you were going to leave those programs on the table anyway for us to take back wherever we're going to take them right now. Let me thank the many sponsors and individuals who have made this event possible. Our presenting sponsor for today, Cox Communications. Our expo sponsor, Northwest Healthcare. Our luncheon sponsor, Spawell. Our host sponsor, El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton resort. We have many champion sponsors, and we're fortunate to do so, so please hold your applause until the end. Acacia IT, Desert Hospitality Management, Golder Ranch Fire District, HSL Properties, Hughes Federal Credit Union, Pima Federal Credit Union, the Town of Oro Valley, the University of Arizona Government and Community Relations, Tech Parks Arizona, and College of Veterinary Medicine, Tucson Association of Realtors, Town West Realty, and Tucson Media Partners. Thank you, champion sponsors. Our premier sponsors, and again, there are several, so please hold your applause till the end. America First Credit Union, Bayer, Canyon Community Bank, Comcast, Commerce Bank of Arizona, Encompass Health, Fishkind Bakewell Maltzman Hunter and Associates, Good News Communications, Institute for Better Education, Kinghorn Law Financial, MHC Healthcare, 1AZ Credit Union, Oro Valley Audiology, Pima County One Stop, Pima JTED, Swan Pilates, Tucson Electric Power, The Post Workspaces, Tucson Federal Credit Union, Tucson Local Media, Valley Gold Long Realty, Visiting Angels, WaFed Bank, and Wendy Wise State Farm. Thank you, premier sponsors. Our supporting sponsors for today are La Posada at Push Ridge, TMC Hospice, and Vantage West Credit Union. We're also grateful to Joey Ambrose with Boompix Media for photographing this event today, to Anstar Production Groups and Regal Fierce Media for their videography, and printing by AZ Litho, who did the beautiful signs in our lobby, and Southwest Solutions, who did your programs today. A special thank you today to the wonderful people here at El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton Resort, led by Chamber Board Member and General Manager Shelby Frankum. Yes, Shelby. And as well, please provide a round of applause for Amanda Johnson, the Director of Catering, who has ensured every detail has been taken care of. Thank you, Amanda. We're also thankful to Encore Global for their AV services, to all of our vendors at the Spring Wellness and Business Expo, and to our wonderful Chamber ambassadors, those volunteers who help take care of all of our guests. And speaking of guests, we have some special guests with us today. Please hold your applause to the end and forgive me if I miss someone. Of course, we have Arizona Commerce Authority President and CEO Sandra Watson and Patrick Patak from her team, as well as Congressman Juan Ciscomani and from his team, Becky Freeman, CJ Karamarjan, and Carla Escamilla. Guys, I told you to hold your applause and then I led you in applause. Sorry. Now we can hold our applause. From the town of Oro Valley, Mayor Joe Winfield, Vice Mayor Melanie Barrett, Council members Tim Bowen, Dr. Harry Moe Green II, and Joyce Jones-Ivy, along with Community and Economic Development Director Paul Melcher and Economic Development Specialist Margie Adler. From Pima County, District 1 Supervisor Rex Scott, joined by Kelly Maslin of the Pima County Office of Economic Development. From the City of Tucson, Economic Initiatives Deputy Director Kevin Burke. A warm welcome to the new Chief of the Golder Ranch Fire District, Tom Brandhuber. From the University of Arizona, a contingent led by Assistant Vice President of Community Relations Julie Katzel, Vice President of Tech Parks Arizona Carol Stewart, and Eric Smith, Executive Director of the UA Center of Innovation. Representing Pima Community College, a contingent led by Vice President of the Northwest Campus, Brian Stewart. From the Board of the Amphitheater School District, Vice President Vicki Cox-Golder. And we're pleased to have Chamber friends Amanda Wiggins of the Marana Chamber of Commerce and Rob Elias of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, as well as our own past President and CEO, Dave Perry, now of Dave Perry Communications. I'd like to recognize our Chamber Board of Directors here with us today, our President, Eric Renault of Pima Federal Credit Union, our Secretary and Clerk, Denny Cousins of North Star Strategies, Executive Committee members, Susan Swan of Swan Pilates, and board members Paul Teese of Commerce Bank of Arizona, Shelby Frankum of El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton Resort, Lydia Camarillo of Golder Ranch Fire District, Zoe Burcham of Kinghorn Law Financial, Lisa Bayless of the Lisa Bayless team at Long Realty, Jack Talmadge of the Oro Valley Country Club, Michael Burns of Red Coyote Services, Dan Wesson at the Post Workspaces, and ex officio member Paul Melcher with the town of Oro Valley. Now let's applaud. I'd also like to extend a very special thank you to our wonderful staff who have shown so much resiliency these past 3 weeks. Our Operations Director, Leah Noring, our Business Development Director, Sherry Colson, our Events and Communications Director, McKenna Markley, who pivoted wonderfully, might I add, having to put on this event without an office, and Joni Bates, our Member Engagement Director. Truly, I am so fortunate to work with these wonderful women, and I hope you appreciate them too. Let's give them a round of applause. As I've mentioned, or you may have noticed, we are grateful to have Cox Communications as our presenting sponsor. Cox Communications is no stranger to most of us here in Southern Arizona. With us today to welcome you and introduce our guest speakers is Stephanie Healy, Cox's Director of Public Affairs. Stephanie joined Cox in 2012, where she was tasked with leading Southern Arizona's public affairs, corporate social responsibility programs, employee engagement, and public relations. That's a big job, Stephanie. Before I invite Stephanie to make some remarks, I'd like to take just a minute to learn more about Cox's multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investment. This investment is part of Cox's commitment to a 10-gigabyte capable fiber optic network. Can you tell that my voice is going out because I practiced so much today, and then now I can't even say the words that I was practicing? That's how it goes. To hear more about what that means to you and me, and most importantly to unserved parts of the state, let's take a look at this short clip and hear firsthand about the impact of Cox's work.
We're basically in a digital black hole here in Huachuca City. It's not the richest of communities. You know, we do fall on the lower end of the income spectrum, many of whom will qualify for the ACP, which is huge. The fact that Cox is actually coming into my town is huge for us, not only from a quality of life perspective for our residents, but also the prospects of economic development.
So one of the cool things about partnering with Cox is we're here pretty soon going to receive some devices that actually allow us to roll out the ACP program in different libraries. So, you know, this will be some laptops where people can come in, upload their documentation, and actually apply for the ACP. Also, we're obviously very excited about Cox bringing actual infrastructure to Huachuca City.
The town of Huachuca City is partnering with Cox to make sure that we get the information about the new opportunities for connectivity coming to our town to everyone that lives here.
And we just want to help everyone get connected as much as possible. And that's what we're here for. And we're very excited about it.
And the residents are excited too.
Before I jump into welcoming our presenters and sharing a little bit more about what Cox is doing in the community, I just want to pause for a second, go a little bit off script, because I know a lot of us think about like our dumpster fires at work and our trash can fires at work every single day, right? And to think about that Kristen and her team pulled this lunch off with truly actually having a fire in your office is, for me, the epitome of resiliency. So thank you to the Oro Valley Chamber of Commerce for your steadfast dedication. Not just to this community, but to the business community in particular, too. So if you're like me, you're kind of sitting here probably thinking, nice story, right, Huachuca City, but what does that have to do with me here in Oro Valley? Well, connectivity is at the heart of everything we do at Cox Communications. It's what excites us the most about what we're doing here in Arizona, and I'm hoping here to, if you'll indulge me in just a couple of minutes, connecting back for you that Huachuca City story to us here in Oro Valley, all across Arizona, what's happening in the state of Arizona, really all across the country, and then hopefully to our presenters as well, who I'm so excited to be able to introduce today. So when we think about what it means to have a multi-million-dollar investment in infrastructure, I tend to think infrastructure and broadband is super sexy. You may not, but what it does do is it powers communities, as you can imagine, and multi-million-dollar billion-dollar investment is about building a state-of-the-art for the next generation. So maybe not for what you and I are using for our internet today, but what the next generation will look like. And that is across all of our footprint, but very much so what we're doing here in Arizona today. It's a 10 gigabit symmetrical fiber-based network. Again, that will be powering everything from autonomous vehicles for you and me. It'll power virtual classrooms, probably in the not too distant future at places like the University of Arizona and Pima College. It will do things like bring alive a metaverse where I imagine my kids will actually be buying homes and ordering fake food. I don't really understand it. I'm glad I'm not having to live in the metaverse right now. I'm happy to be here with you here in the now. But this is all part of the next generation. So when you think about a community like Huachuca City, that is not possible today. So even being able to power a classroom in the environment today with unreliable, slow, or super expensive broadband has been an impediment to economic development all across rural communities in this country, but especially here in Arizona. And one of the things that we're doing at Cox as part of this multi-billion-dollar investment is making really strategic decisions to invest our own capital in communities just like Huachuca City, all the way from Yavapai to Huachuca City to Pinal County, Arizona City, Eloy, all across, all the way down to Douglas. So it's something that our team is most proud of, I think, working on how we deliver affordability and digital equity programs into these communities as well. And it's, again, part of how we build a better, brighter future for all of Arizona. It connects, I think, to our presenters, too, here in just a minute, because both of them have had a role in building this infrastructure and building these investments in Arizona. Cox Communications has been the recipient of 3 broadband infrastructure grants from the Arizona Commerce Authority. And these funds got their start from a pretty transformational, once-in-a-lifetime kind of investment from the federal government. One of our presenters worked for the administration that was instrumental in bringing those funds to Arizona. And the other presenter is actually responsible for administrating these funds and making sure they're deployed to unserved and underserved communities all across the state. So when we were invited to be a co-presenter for the luncheon and then introduce the presenters, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we couldn't think of 2 better people from our standpoint here at Cox Communications. And I know there are absolutely no strangers to anybody in this audience. If you follow economic development and business development in this community, like I know each of you do, you know Congressman Ciscomani and you know Sandra Watson quite well and appreciate all that they have done for Arizona and for Oro Valley too. So I know both of them. This is the first time I get to introduce Congressman Ciscomani, I believe, as a congressman, so I'll ask him to come join me up here. But Congressman Ciscomani is recently elected, thank you, and represents Arizona's 6th congressional district. He is an immigrant to the state of Arizona, born raised here in the Tucson area. His father was a bus driver here in Tucson. He is the proud product of Tucson schools, Pima College, University of Arizona. He's familiar to all of us if you've worked with him in his past careers at the University of Arizona or at the Tucson Hispanic Chamber, and certainly with the governor's office here, both in southern Arizona as part of the Arizona-Mexico Commission. Also, if you know Juan, his secret weapon and what makes him most successful is his he already answered the question, his absolutely amazing wife, Laura, who's also the mother to his 6 children. So busy life, busy wife, fabulous family. Thanks so much for joining us here. Our second presenter, Sandra Watson, is the Chief Executive Officer of the Arizona Commerce Authority. I'm going to try not to date us here, Sandra, but I have known Sandra since the very beginning of my career here in Tucson and Arizona. She has a long and amazing career in economic development in Arizona. She is, in my opinion, and I think in many people here in this room and beyond this room's opinion, one of the brightest stars that we have in Arizona. Truly has done more, I think, for the state of Arizona and our economic development than any other single person. It's truly legacy work that Sandra does. 250,000 jobs have been created under Sandra's watch at the Commerce Authority and through the work of her team. She has a stellar reputation. She's involved in just about everything to do with economic development. And I'm really excited to hear both what Juan and what Sandra have to say. Sorry, Congressman Ciscomani and Sandra have to say. I'll hand it back to Kristen.
Thank you, Stephanie. If you all haven't noticed yet, there are some pens and paper on your tables. As we go through our presentation and our program today, please feel free to write down some questions. We will be collecting those and may have time for questions at the end of our program. All right, well, thank you, Juan and Sandra, for joining us today. We're very excited to have you. And I'd love to start by first, if you just want to tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you got into your role and what really inspired you to pursue your respective career paths. So, Sandra, if you would like to go first.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate all of the great work that you and the continued and your leadership does for Oro Valley and for Southern Arizona. Stephanie, thank you for that generous introduction. Much appreciated. And I am so excited to be on stage with my friend, former colleague, and now Congressman Juan Ciscomani. So thank you. And thank you for making this happen. Juan and I did a lot of this, in his previous career. And this is the first time we've had a chance to be on stage together since he's become the congressman. So really excited. So I got into economic development from the very first day I graduated from college. I had no idea what economic development was about. I got out of college with a business degree and thought, okay, I'm going to go work into the private sector. And then I was tapped by, I'm originally from Canada, so I was tapped by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Technology, which was really doing economic development for the province of Ontario in Canada. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I got into it and found out that I absolutely loved it. So I started my career back in 1990, moved out to Arizona in 1992, started working at the state doing economic development business attraction in 1996. And when we created the ACA, I was asked to be the president and CEO of ACA. So I've been doing that since 2012. So it's been an exciting
doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Juan?
Well, thank you. I want to echo Sandra's excitement to be on stage together. We've done this many, many times, but not as in my new role. And I was talking to a group this morning, and they did the same thing. They called me Congressman Ciscomani. That's the title, of course. But I tell them, I said, I'm Juan. In Spanish is El Juan, so you can continue to call me that for sure. I grew up in this community. I grew up in Tucson and Rincon High School, and then Pima Community College, then the U of A. I worked at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce at the U of A right before there, and then went over to work at Governor Ducey's office and had different roles there, which is where Sandra and I got to really know each other and work closely together. One thing that I'd like to point out is that, Sandra was, of course, she mentioned she is from Canada, was born in Canada, was born in Mexico. So you have a panel here with two immigrants into not only the state, but the country that have, in a lot of ways, been pursuing the American dream. And I think we're in the big part of it, we're living it. As I was mentioned in my intro, which Stephanie, thank you. She promised to not embarrass us too much, and she did a really good job at that. So that was nice. But I do want to thank you also for hosting here, and been working with Dave Perry for a long time, back when I was at the Hispanic Chamber as well. And we have the mayor here as well, Winfield. So I want to thank him for hosting us. Always an amazing town that keeps on growing and doing great things. I'm very proud to have this area in my district now, and everything that you mentioned and all the cities that will be impacted by the ACP project are in my district as well, Huachuca City, Arizona City, Eloy, and the rest of the rural parts of it. And I'm happy as an appropriator to be supporting that as it moves through the process. And so I grew up here in Tucson. You heard part of the story. My dad was a bus driver for SunTrans since I can remember, TUSD before then. And the best way I can describe my story is right before I launched the campaign, he pulled me aside and he said, Juan, I want you to think of something. He said, where else could we have our story? We come to the country, we immerse in the culture, we learn English. He said, we become U.S. citizens. He said, I drive a bus my whole life, and now my son has a shot at becoming a member of the United States Congress. Where else in the world could we have our story? The answer is simple, nowhere else in the world. So he said, so listen, I think you're going to win, but whatever happens, just prepping me, right, in case something happened. This wasn't the first time that I ran, so the first time I lost. So I think he was prepping me for something. He said, whatever happens, just remember one thing, you've already won, because you're a citizen of the best country in the world. And you can wake up the next morning, reinvent yourself, do something else. You've got your family, your freedom, your God, your wife, your family. So just be out there, be positive. So if whatever you saw from our camp and you see from us today is that we smile quite a bit because we're working for all of you. I'm in the people business. This is what I do. I take care of our constituents, and I'm happy to be here sharing whatever questions you may have, specifically on economic development and what small businesses have and the power that they are for this community and this country. So thank you for having us so much.
Absolutely, we're glad to do it. And I would say that Arizona and even the United States is better for having both of you in it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So let's start at a little bit of a higher level, at a state level. Can you provide us with a brief overview of what's happening in the Arizona economy and how we fare compared to the national economy?
Absolutely. Do you want me to start?
Either or, yeah,
Go ahead, Sandra. Yeah.
Thank you. I am so excited about our economy. The momentum that we're experiencing today has never been seen before in our state's history. The level of activity, the number of projects, but I think it's important to talk about where we've come from. When the Great Recession hit in 2008, our economy was hit extremely hard, harder than most states. Most people heard about Detroit and all of the jobs that were lost in Detroit. Arizona lost more construction jobs right here than the automotive industry did in Detroit. That's how challenging that recession was for our state. And it was because we were not a diversified economy. We had not quite diversified into other sectors. We were building on this great growth, but there weren't industries behind that growth that would allow us to sort of sustain those recessions. And so it took Arizona a lot longer than any other state to get out of that recession. We generally, past recessions, we'd bounce back very, very quickly. The 2008 recession, it took us 3 to 4 years to come out of that recession. And during that time, Governor Brewer, who had taken office in 2009, had decided that we needed to reimagine what the state's economic development department could do for the state of Arizona and how we might rethink some of our programs and how we might focus our efforts on diversifying our economy. And so when the Arizona Commerce Authority was established, it was very intentional in its mission. And its mission was specifically to diversify our economy, focus on advanced manufacturing, focus on industries that provided greater wealth and jobs to our citizens, and also putting Arizona on the map. We were always overshadowed by the activity that was happening in California. It was difficult for Arizona to sort of get its footing when we were talking to businesses, when you have Silicon Valley right next door, and then obviously Texas and the great work that they were doing. So we assembled a team. We've got an amazing team at the ACA, and started to get to work. And in 2015, when Governor Ducey took office, and that's when Juan and I got a chance to meet and start working very closely together, he supercharged our organization and really added some additional tools and opportunities and programs for us to continue down that mission. Today, I'm happy to say that we have a very diversified economy. We have more manufacturing jobs in our state than we do in the construction industry, and we have a lot of construction jobs. So again, it's really about how do we diversify this economy. Since 2016, we have announced, I think it's 5 EV, electric vehicle, groundbreakings here in Arizona. Since just in the last 2 years, we actually announced over a dozen semiconductor companies, one of which was TSMC, which was making a $40 billion investment in our state and creating 4,500 jobs. And the other was Intel, who had been here since the 80s, who continues to reinvest in our community, creating $20 billion investment, and a handful of suppliers. And then just in the last 4 months, we've been fortunate to announce 5 battery manufacturing companies, 2 right here in southern Arizona with the American Battery Factory that announced a $1.2 billion investment and 1,000 jobs in Tucson, Scion Power as well in southern Arizona, and then $5.5 billion just recently with LG and their battery manufacturer in Queen Creek. So our economy is growing. It's very robust. Our pipeline is full. We've got a ton more projects, but I'll turn it over to Juan.
And Juan, maybe how does our Arizona economy, which sounds like it's very robust, compare to our national economy?
Well, that's very exciting to hear all that Sandra mentioned, and I do want to give her a lot of credit for guiding us to get there. I think one of the best moves that Governor Ducey made was to keep her in that position, and then she stayed there for 8 years, which is quite the task to do in that high-profile job, and serving under 3 different governors now since the inception of the ACA. So Sandra knows very well the ins and outs of this and has guided us to do this, specifically here in southern Arizona. We saw that early on in the Ducey administration where Caterpillar came in and other big companies were like that as well. I mean, when we started, downtown looked very different, and now Caterpillar was a big driver into turning it around, but also a lot of investment here in Oro Valley as well. And that's what I think it's very exciting, and that's the power that definitely the state government has in that. How we compare to other parts around the country, every area is going to be different. I think we're all being impacted by inflation. We're all impacted by supply chain interruptions. These are all the things that have been impacting daily life around the country. One of the things that puts Arizona in a very unique position, like Sandra mentioned, it's learning where you can diversify and also what strengths do you have. Another area that the ACA and the Arizona-Mexico Commission worked together on was on this trade relationship with Mexico and with Canada as well. During our time there together is when USMCA came into, it was the former NAFTA was being updated now into USMCA, and the administration and Sandra and I heavily advocated for that because that's a big job creator for us. Over $21 billion in trade between Canada, Mexico, and Arizona happen every single year. For Arizona, Mexico's our #1 trading partner, times 4. Canada's #2 at about $4 billion. Mexico's right about $17 billion of export-import trade between Arizona and these 2 countries. That's a big job creator, over 228,000 jobs that depend on that. And here in southern Arizona is obviously where we see a lot of the impact. This is not even including tourism. And in some of the border communities, the sales tax from Mexican shoppers, it can go up to about 70 or 80% of their town revenue through sales tax comes from the shoppers from the other side of the border. So having this robust trade and tourism relationship with Mexico has been essential for Arizona. And especially in southern Arizona, there are certain things that when you look at an economic development map, what you would want to be able to really take advantage of is a young and vibrant community, which we have. It's a live downtown, which we now have. It's a Research One university, which we have. It's proximity to the border that I just described. It's a military base close by that we have. These are all aspects that a town or an area can thrive with one of those. Well, we have a handful of them. And we have towns like this one that are nimble and they're young and they're getting out there leading and innovating and attracting investment. I think we're very well positioned to take full advantage of what Sandra is attracting. I'll end with this, but one of the best things that I remember the governor saying all the time is that he would say, I don't care where businesses go as long as they come to Arizona. Then it's going to be up to each community to put their best foot forward to attract those companies to their area. And that's something that this community has definitely done, and we're going to continue to do. So thank you.
Well, Juan, as a follow-up to that, what can local communities like Oro Valley do to maximize their attractiveness to bring those businesses here in our communities?
So I'll build on what Juan was saying because I do think he's identified some incredible assets that this community has, and it is teamwork. It is working together as partners understanding what those assets are, and then how do we position those assets to ensure that you're top of mind when decision makers are coming in, visiting, looking around to establish new opportunities. We have an entire team dedicated to business attraction and expansion, working with existing businesses in our state to help them expand. But we also have an enormous group of individuals on our team that are very focused on small businesses. And one of the really important things that we're seeing in building the economy and helping to grow the economy is that you have to approach this from all angles: small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses. And so what's really important for us is to be working very, very closely with you and your entire team. The local economic development organizations, Sun Corridor in this region is very active and a strong partner is ours as well. The universities, I saw Steve Voller here. I don't know if President Robbins is here, but we work very, very closely with the universities. They're an incredible asset in attracting those kind of companies and those jobs. Pima Community College and the various community college systems throughout Arizona are incredibly important too. We have to answer the questions that the businesses have. And two of the top questions that those businesses have today are, do you have the talent necessary to help our operation grow and attract the talent, the ability to attract that talent, and then do you have the infrastructure? Many of these projects are capital intensive. They require a lot of infrastructure. And as Stephanie mentioned, how important infrastructure is. Broadband is incredibly important. Power, the utilities that serve these industries are really important. So identifying properties and locations where the infrastructure is available, or we can bring infrastructure to that site, and then making sure that you have the talent. The rest, I know we can convince clients that this is the best place to do business, but we do need to work together. So we understand your assets, you understand what the state has, and it really is a team sport, and it's working in collaboration with each other.
Absolutely, it's teamwork, it's partnerships, everything that Sandra mentioned from where I'm sitting. Literally, so I'm the only Arizonan on the Appropriations Committee on the House of Representatives. From our entire delegation, I'm the sole member on the Appropriations Committee, and we're also, just so you know, the only freshman in the entire Congress to be on this committee, which is important because this gives us a voice and a seat at the table. Would we not be there, then Arizona would not have any appropriator at the table when we're looking at how do we fund these a lot of these projects and a lot of these efforts, like we heard from Cox just now, or other projects out there. Now, I serve on 3 subcommittees. One of them is on transportation and on housing. And the other one is on labor and health and human services, that a lot of the education stuff comes from as well. I mentioned that because when you look at how do we attract companies here, and when they look at us, infrastructure is key. That's one of the committees that I sit on, of course. And the other one is an educated workforce. It's a workforce that can get out there and fill the needs. And I know that Kathy's here from JTED. This is an amazing program that we have here in our community. Top notch, one that I am happy to be supporting in Congress because it's producing students with a key specific interest to go into industries that otherwise they probably wouldn't be able to. And then remember, we have this notion that everybody should go immediately or at all to a 4-year institution. I'm a graduate from the U of A, that's great, but I came from Pima Community College. Had I not gone to Pima College first, I don't think I would be here today. I can tell you that today, that I don't think I would be here. They gave me a shot. A student that is an immigrant that had no knowledge. My parents, I'm not embarrassed to say, my parents didn't know the difference, and neither did I, between a community college and a university. When I first started attending high school, we didn't know what a GPA was and how you calculate that. I had no tools. I liked school, I liked sports, and I did well enough in school to maintain my eligibility to continue to play sports. And I'll never forget this. I was telling Sandra as I was walking out of my class, my building there at Rincon High School, which shares a campus with UHS kids, very different where I grew up. I was walking out, and the Pima Community College counselor was there, Victor Salazar. I talked to him on the phone not too long ago. I called him from my office in Congress to thank him. Because he spotted me. He says, "Hey, Juan, what are you doing after school?" 3 weeks from graduating. 3 weeks. I said, well, I'm going to go to track practice. Of course, what are you going to do? He said, I'm talking about high school, man. Like, you're not even thinking high school. What are you going to do after that? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, here it is. He said, I've looked you up. You're a leader. You're an athlete. I'll give you a 1-semester scholarship to Pima. The rest will be up to you. I said, well, Harvard isn't knocking down my door right now. So I said, I guess I'll take your offer. I went to the East Campus. One thing led to another. I became student body president. I discovered this passion for service, and here we are. Here we are. And those are the opportunities that JTED, Pima Community College, the U of A, all these institutions can offer students if we spot them early and we believe in them and we create that workforce. The most interesting part about this story is that my wife, Laura, that Stephanie mentioned, she's absolutely right. You know, one of the things that I'm most grateful for Laura is that she's not interested in running for office, because if she primaries me, I lose that election immediately. But she is the first woman in her family to attend college, on both sides of her family. No other woman in her family. Her immigrant parents. She was born in California. That's another country to the west of Arizona, if you're wondering. But first woman in her family to attend college. She went on the full academic right to Stanford University. All right. American dream story, right? She goes there on a GPA that was double mine, and she graduates with honors, gets the highest honors award for her honors thesis. She does amazing. And then she gets selected for this program that is selected 10 women and 10 guys and 10 girls that were recent graduates from around the country to go to Washington, D.C. for a public policy fellowship. She was one of the 10 girls in the country selected for that. I happen to be one of the 10 guys in the country selected for that. We met at her orientation, and when I saw her, I was like, boom. I need to up my game here. The reason that I'm telling you this is because I tell our 6 kids, I say, whether it's a community college, a technical career, or a full academic right to Stanford University, Mom and Dad took different routes, and we ended up in the same place at the same time. Because it's not where you start, it's what you do with it. And that's why I'm so proud of the opportunities that our community offers, specifically here in Southern Arizona, because we are small enough that we know people still walking in our streets, and we can give them those shots like the one that I was given. So I think that investing in our workforce through community colleges, JTED, and the university are key components to attract these businesses here.
And to follow up on that, we know that the workforce remains a top priority across the state and country. We hear it from our members every single day. We hear it from local Oro Valley businesses as we visit them. How is Arizona leading to establish a premier workforce? We already mentioned the universities and Pima. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. During Governor Ducey's term, he obviously in talking to a number of businesses, and he was very active in economic development. Many of the business leaders who were making those decisions were talking about workforce and the importance of workforce. And so obviously, as Juan described how important our community colleges and our universities are, but it's incredibly important that our employers are working closely with our post-secondary education institutions to ensure that the training that is happening in the education that has the ability to translate into employment. And when we were working with Lucid Motors, and I remember Juan and I worked on that together, and one of the things that they said to Governor Ducey at the time was, where am I going to get my workers? And this was in Casa Grande. And we partnered with the community college, and Governor Ducey provided us with some resources to establish a partnership with Central Arizona College, creating what we now know as Drive 48. Drive 48 was established as a partnership with the city of Casa Grande, with the Arizona Commerce Authority in the state, with the community college, Central Arizona Community College, and Lucid Motors. And Lucid Motors provided the equipment into that training center. And we worked as a partnership to ensure that students would have the ability to train specifically on the equipment that they might be using on the manufacturing floor. So I mention that because it truly was a model. It was very unique. It was different. It was a model, private sector working with academia, working with government, all to solve a problem. They ramped up very quickly. In their first 18 months, they trained over 2,000 students. All of those students received a job and, obviously working in a manufacturing operation. Obviously, that model was working in Casa Grande. We knew we could replicate that model around the state. We had a number of workforce professionals from states all across the country come to Arizona to visit that. That became a best practice for states in looking at how to develop that strong partnership with the private industry. Before Governor Ducey left office, he gave us $30 million to do 6 more of those. And under Governor Hobbs's leadership, she was encouraging us to start implementing that program and get those training centers up and running. So we're working with companies in the semiconductor industry. We're working with companies in the battery manufacturing industry. We're working in the EV, renewable energy. So we'll be establishing these training centers throughout Arizona that is very specific to making sure that we're meeting the needs of our employers. Pima Community College, I can't say enough about the incredible work that they continue to do and the $20 billion investment they made in creating a center of excellence for the aerospace and aviation industry. Those are the types of programs that are going to make a difference. Those are the types of programs that are going to help us market the state better. So workforce is the number one issue when it comes to businesses. They are not able to produce a single thing unless they have a qualified and skilled workforce. And there is a shortage of workers and skilled talent, not only here in Arizona, across the country, but all over the world. When you're talking about trained talent, this is a global issue. And as Juan talked about, is really encouraging students to move to that next level, giving them the tools, giving them the opportunities, because there are jobs out there. There are 2 jobs available here in Arizona for every 1 person looking. So there are plenty of jobs. We're fortunate that we're a community that can continue to attract people to our state. We're one of the highest growing states in the country because of the great quality of life that we all enjoy here. So we're fortunate that we're able to attract talent and also grow talent in our state. So workforce is hands down the number one issue.
Okay, I think I covered a lot of this in my answer, but one thing I want to just reemphasize that Sandra said is all that we talked about in workforce and how the education institutions can be a feeder for a strong workforce, that's all under normal circumstances. Right now, what we're facing in terms of the need in the workforce, that even just makes that a larger issue. When I talk to small businesses, if it's a 3 to 5 employee business or large corporations, everyone needs workers. If it's nurses, or if it's engineers, or if it's in the service industry, or if you go to Yuma and you talk to the ag community, these are all issues that we're facing that we absolutely need to tackle. And it's even more so today. That's why I like the way that Senator ended this, because normally this is an issue and this will always be an issue, but now it's a global issue as well. An issue that we have tools here to also tackle. I mentioned the school ones, but I have to tell you, as you're looking at 2 immigrants on stage, immigration is also a way that we've tackled workforce needs in the past. And we need to get on this seriously on a proper immigration system that prioritizes workforce and an economic need in our country. As an immigrant myself, I can tell you that I've gone through the process. I became a citizen in 2006. That's when I became a U.S. citizen. The first time that I went to Capitol Hill, I went there as an intern in 2003. I was still a permanent resident with a green card. Second time I go to Capitol Hill is as a member of Congress with the green pin now for a member. These are the opportunities that we have here. So we can take advantage of those. So when I talk about immigration, and we talk about border security, which is another border issue. These are two separate issues. And I want to focus here on the immigration side of it, where we have a great opportunity, being this close to our southern neighbor, to be able to take advantage of that. Not only through trade, commerce, and tourism, but also through workforce. And you can go and see what Yuma does and what they've done a great job at this. So, I mean, that could be a whole session in itself, but just letting you know that I've got my eye on that.
And we could probably sit here all afternoon and chat about that. And I do have one final question for you, but I'd just like to remind our audience that if you have any questions, now's the time. Write them down on that piece of paper and hold them up. And our staff members, Sherry, Joni, and Leah will be coming around. If you have it, just wave it in the air. And they will bring them up here to the stage to us. So they'll collect those as we go through this final question. But we talked about infrastructure and available workforce being the important things to bring new businesses to specifically Southern Arizona. And I think we can all agree that bringing new businesses and bolstering our economy is important. But not all of us are Cox Communications or the U of A or Pima Community College who have direct impact on those things. So what would you say to the rest of our guests here today? How can small businesses and medium-sized businesses help to bolster our economy here in Southern Arizona?
Well, I'll start on this one. I'll tell you what, though, when you look at the businesses that were mentioned that have direct influence, that's absolutely true, and you employ so many people. But the majority of the people in the state are employed by small businesses, the vast majority. This is where the real impact happens. This is also where the real decisions get made. We're at the kitchen table, and you have to make payroll, and you have to make tough decisions. This is where really the rubber meets the road. And I am very proud of, my wife is she owns a consulting firm, so she's got a small business of her own. We go through those conversations, we go through those struggles, we get impacted immediately by whatever happens in the tax system. So these are things that the majority of people are facing, because you're either working for a small business or you're consuming from a small business as well. So I think everyone here has the ability to impact whatever say and influence a small business could have. So I want to, once again, as we wrap up the last question, at least from this panel, to thank small businesses once again for putting the risk out there. I got to tell you that Sandra and I grew up in this school of thought that we know that the government doesn't create jobs. I now work for you all, representing you in Congress, and I can tell you and sit here in full confidence tell you that the government creates 0 jobs. The government can create an environment where businesses go and create the jobs, where you all go. You're the one signing your name on that lease. You're the one risking your mortgage to go start a business. You're the one putting your dreams on the line to go out and pursue whatever's in your heart to go get done. So you're the one that should be getting the reward as well. And then government will benefit from this through sales tax and whatever else, but we can, in the government, they can't succeed until businesses succeed. So I want to once again thank you, because as a small business owner that you are and that you're consuming from, you're putting everything on the line every day to employ people, meet families' needs, and meet a need that the community has. So keep up the good work. I'll continue to do my job from the position that I'm in Congress to help create an environment where you can continue to go out there and thrive. And I know Sandra will definitely do the same.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan. And I would echo what Juan said. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. Without small businesses, we would not have an economy. 99% of our businesses in our state are small businesses. And your success is why Arizona is successful. If we have a successful, vibrant small business community, it allows us to begin to recruit other companies and help existing businesses grow. We have several programs available at the ACA for small businesses, because we want to make sure that we continue to be your partner, we continue to help, and hopefully, as Juan has done in his former position and now as congressman, is removing barriers. there are always going to be a barrier of some sort. And how do we, as your partner, help to remove barriers and get out of the way so you can be successful? And I think that's absolutely critical. We want to make sure that we are addressing your needs and understanding what your issues are. And when we do sit up here a lot and talk about these multi-billion-dollar investments, and we're super excited about those. But they wouldn't be here unless we had a vibrant small business community. Small businesses are the engine of innovation. They are the ones that are on the front lines producing, and quite honestly, a great training ground for new workers into the workforce in some cases, and then obviously helping to improve skills as they continue to grow in your companies. So from our perspective, it's about the economy, and Arizona's definition of the economy is a vibrant small business community. We would not be successful without you. So whatever we can do to help support you in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to make sure that we are listening, that we hear your concerns, and they're working, whether it's policy, whether it's new programs, whether it's just making the right connection so that you have what you need to continue to grow your operations.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sandra, real quick, and I'm sorry to go out of order, but I think one of the things that you alluded to that is very important is when a big, larger business is growing or is moving to a state, they're looking for small businesses that are suppliers. And part of that supply chain that doesn't necessarily have to come from other parts of the world, definitely Asia, which is a big competitor for us, that's another conversation. But even within our own North American sector, a lot of it can be done here. And these larger businesses that employ a lot of people at once are looking to get their supply chain from small businesses. So really, big businesses, I think, are better served by having a vibrant small business community around them.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction because that's where the entire state plays a role. Even if a business lands in a particular community, they are looking for suppliers that are nearby. And that means everyone in the state is able to participate. We have a number of suppliers in the rural parts of our state that are supporting the semiconductor industry companies. We have lots of suppliers that are supporting the EV market. And so our small businesses, no matter where they are located in our state, are helping to serve and provide supplies and necessary services and products to some of these larger companies. It's really important that we understand what your capabilities are so that we can help make those matches, because generally they'll ask us, do you have suppliers in your state that we can tap into? Because they'd much rather tap into a supplier in state than actually go elsewhere. So I think that's a very good point. Thank you.
And actually, a perfect example of this, I was speaking with some colleagues at Roche Tissue Diagnostics, here in Oro Valley, $1 billion company, and we were talking to their head of manufacturing, and they say, we supply ourselves locally as much as we possibly can. And so that's just
That's a great example.
Yes.
I toured the plant maybe a couple of weeks ago and extremely impressed, not only with what they are engineering there, but what they're producing, also the manufacturing piece, as well as the leadership and the local investment. It's an amazing company that has done great things for our state.
Yeah. Wonderful. So let's see if we have any questions from the audience.
Give Sandra the hard ones.
And if I'm reading your question and I don't read it correctly because I might have an issue reading some handwriting, please correct me. So, Juan, maybe this is a question for you. I know you touched on this a little bit already. Immigration is a big piece to our local, state, and nation's economy. What are your thoughts on immigration and our economy?
Well, like I said, I think you can find part of the solution that we're facing in a workforce, and quite honestly, in many other issues, by improving our current immigration system. Now, this is a beast of a project that many have tried, and quite frankly, many have failed. I think that there are a variety of reasons for that, but one of the ways that I would like to approach this issue is by taking one bite of the apple at a time. When you try to do this in just a big swoop kind of and put everything in there, that's when you start peeling off support to something that can be really straightforward. You know, there's a notion that everybody that may come here wants to come here and stay the way that my family did it and to pursue the American dream forever. But when you look at, again, the Yuma sector, these farmers are required to provide housing to the guest workers that are coming across to work on their fields. But over 90% of that provided housing goes unused. Because you know what they want to do? They want to go back home and sleep at their own beds and invest in their own communities and send their kids to their own schools. They're not interested in coming here and staying. They're interested in coming here and working. And we need the workers. They need the job, and it's just a good match. Now, some may think, well, what about the jobs that Arizonans may want to do? Well, about 40,000 a day in the peak season in Yuma cross over to work there. Who can help me find 40 Arizonans that want to go to the 120-degree weather over in the Yuma sector to do that job? It's hard to find. And the farmers themselves will tell you that's a hard task to find. So we can put it in context of solving real issues, and the guest worker program is one of them. This is one of the ones that we can tackle, and we should be able to respond to the need of industry. Whatever side of the aisle you sit on, we're all hearing from businesses and small businesses that need this kind of workforce, so that is definitely part of it. I have to tell you, I went through the process with my family. By the time I became a U.S. citizen, I was already an adult, and so were my younger sisters. It shouldn't take that long. It took over a decade to go through this process. And it's long, it's expensive, it's bureaucratic, and it's slow. Now, we'll go through it over and over again if we had to do it again, because that was the price to be in this country, and we'll pay it every single time. But my gosh, I mean, we should be doing a better job at that, and we can do a better job at it. Now, I should also say that we have a situation on the border that we have to tackle. Border security we have a crisis, and it is a real issue with fentanyl and other drugs pouring through our ports of entry, not just through the outskirts and the desert. We have a real problem. And unfortunately, that's impacting any kind of immigration reform that we could actually tackle. And that's why we need to tackle and really address the entire border. When you're talking the entire border, I'm talking immigration, I'm talking trade and commerce, and I'm talking border security. These are three separate ones. And we should be able to talk about them simultaneously when it applies and separately when they apply as well.
Thank you, Juan. So we talked a lot about higher education with our universities and community colleges. What about a K through 12 investment in education? And does it matter for economic development to have that specific grade range?
So most of our clients are focused on talent and more immediate to ensure that they can fill those jobs immediately. But education, obviously, K through 12 is incredibly important. That may not be on the list of factors when they're deciding on, their location, the size of their building, the property that they're looking at, but they are considering education from, their employee standpoint, for where their employees' children may go to school. And so K through 12 becomes and continues to be a really important aspect. It's not necessarily the decision, it's not the deciding factor on where that plant goes, but it certainly is one of the factors.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Sometimes economic development feels more Valley or Phoenix-centric. What must Southern Arizona specifically do to remain competitive? Sandra, what do we need to do to get on the map?
So I do think there's a lot of activity happening right now. We're seeing a lot of activity happen in Southern Arizona. So I do believe things are changing. When companies are looking at locations, we at the state encourage them to look statewide. So that if they come in thinking, oh, I want to go to Phoenix because they've heard about Phoenix, or someone else located in Phoenix, we're always encouraging those companies to look statewide. But speed is really important. So making sure you have available sites. If we're talking about some of what we classify as mega projects, and a mega project Our classification of a mega project is any project over 500 million in capital investment or 1,000 jobs. So American Battery Factory was considered a mega project, Lucid, Nikola, and others. It's important that we're able to meet their criteria. Many of our mega projects right now, we have over 60 of them in the pipeline. We're working 400 actual active competitive projects right now across the board. 76% of those are in the manufacturing sector, the highest that we've ever seen in our pipeline in the history of the work that we've done. So many of those companies are looking for, is there land? How much land is available to meet their criteria? Is the infrastructure available? Do they have the workers? And so our job in how we can encourage more activity here in Southern Arizona is to really make sure we've got a strong inventory of the properties available, whether they're existing or there's new opportunities from land acquisition. How do we put that in front of a client? So it's really important that we continue to understand the Southern Arizona market, and we're very active in your market. Those 63 or 60-some companies that are in that mega list, many of them are looking in this area. Again, it's a very competitive environment. We're competing with multiple states. Texas seems to be sort of our number one competitor these days. We're winning projects against Texas, so I'm very encouraged by what we're seeing. And I do think that there are a number of projects we are actually showing Southern Arizona to, and I believe that we will continue to see some success. So we're starting to get there, and just making sure that we're fully informed and working very closely with you and your partners. As I mentioned earlier, Sun Corridor is a great partner of ours, and they obviously work with all of you to ensure that all of the assets you have available are part of those proposals. So we'll continue to actively seek proposals from this area to ensure that we're representing the entire state.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Sandra. And again, thank you both for being here with us today. It's such an honor to have both of you here, and I very much enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you all have too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to all of you for being involved. I know that many of you have reached out to our office. Please continue to do so. We want to continue to serve everyone. Our two first bills were around veterans. We want to continue to support our veterans, and I enjoy here in D.C. when people ask me, what's your favorite part about the job? It reminds me of my kindergartner when he started going to, well, one of them, the third one, when he went to kinder the first week, I said, hey, buddy, how do you like school? He said, I love it. I'm like, great, what's your favorite part? He said, leaving. So when people ask me, what's your favorite part about Washington, it's the same answer, leaving. It's coming home, being with you all. So please, if there are sites that we need to go see, things that we need to learn, I'm enjoying this job, and it's a fast-paced one, and I want to continue to do my best and be as educated as possible to properly represent you in Washington, D.C. So thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you all.
Thank you again, Juan and Sandra. What a wonderful event they've put on for us today. And our last event was our business summit in January, which I'm sure several of you were at, where Ryan Lambert of Three Buckets Wealth Management led a workshop about creating vision boards. That workshop was so educational that we ended up having a follow-up workshop in February where we actually created our own vision boards. At that workshop, Ryan told us all, he said, make sure you are ready for what you put on your vision board, because more often than not, it happens. Well, I mentioned that my vision for the chamber included a new space that provided more amenities for our members. On March 21st, the universe told our chamber loud and clear that ready or not, it was time for a new space. So here we are, 3 weeks and 1 day after our fire. Yes, our chamber has lost the space that we've operated out of since October of 2010. We've lost pens and paper and desks and paper and printers and paper and all of the banners that were missing on the walls today, and yes, more paper. Can you tell what kind of caused the fire? So we've lost things, and sure, those things make it easier to run our chamber, but they're not what makes our chamber. You are what make our chamber, our members, our community partners, our wonderful staff and board members and ambassadors. Our day-to-day operations have certainly changed, but I want to assure you that what makes our chamber truly special has not. Our staff is here to serve you, our members, and our community the same as always, but now we just get to do it in our jammies at home. Because of this work from home situation, preparing for this event looked a little bit different this year. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Amanda and the Marana Chamber of Commerce for letting us spend hours using their printer and office supplies in preparing for this event. Some people will say that the many local chambers that we have here in Southern Arizona are in competition, but I will tell you we are not. We are great friends, and we are all working together hard for you every day to bolster our economy and to make all of Southern Arizona a more vibrant place to live, raise our families, and run our businesses. So on that note, thank you to everyone for joining us today for our 2023 Economic Outlook Luncheon. We hope that you learned, ate well, and enjoyed yourself. Take care.